Today I'm excited to share with you a function that I wrote for the Polars extensions library that allows you to read and write Polars schemas. Now, this is particularly useful when you are working with very predictable data, usually with data flows and different things like that, where you know the schema is going to be the same and you can basically reuse and use the same schema every single time. So this is something that I developed for my personal work. I manage a lot of data flows in my job, and so I basically put this together to kind of help with that. So let me share this with you. Let's go ahead and expand this. Now, in order to use this functionality, you'll obviously need to head on over to pypy.org and install the Polars extensions library. You can find instructions on how to do that there, and you can learn more about the project and different aspects of what we're trying to do there. Okay, now I'm going to read in the Polars extensions library as PLX, and obviously we need Polars, so we're going to have that one as well. And what we're going to do here, the overview, is we're going to read in a CSV file. We're going to get the schema from it. We're going to save it. And then we're going to edit it, make some changes to the actual schema file, and then we'll reread in that schema and apply it to our employees data set as we're reading it in here. So kind of a lot of steps there. Very simple though. We're going to just go ahead and first read in our data here. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so we have our data, and you can see there's a few columns here, specifically these last three columns that could use some edits. Obviously, we didn't use the try parse dates argument that is available here. Otherwise, that would have fixed the problem with these dates. We did that on purpose so that we can do it later. But also this salary column should be a float data type so that we can have some decimals there. Obviously, most salaries aren't perfectly an integer. There's some decimal values there, so we'll want to include that. But let's go ahead now and just take a look at the schema as it stands. So I'm going to type data.schema and run that. Okay, and now when we use the Polars write schema function, we can either pass in the data frame itself, the Polars data frame, or we can pass in the schema value, so we can pass in this. We'll show you how to do both ways. So let's go ahead and first start by typing PLX and then write schema. Now I've got Copilot up here, and they're kind of giving me some suggestions on what I should do, and it's actually a great suggestion, so I'm going to go ahead and just accept this. And let's go ahead and run that. You should see a new file appear up here, and you can see that it's in a JSON format. So this is working as expected. Let's go ahead and format the document and save that. And we're actually going to come back and make some changes in just a second, but I did want to kind of make the change so you can see it works for the other way as well if we use the actual schema object. So let's go ahead now and type schema. And so this function should work. It'll overwrite that file that we have. Let's go ahead and run that. Then open that up. Okay, you can see it put it back on one line. Now I do want to format it to make it a little bit easier to read, as well as we're going to make a few changes here. So let's go ahead and make some adjustments to this file. And we need to pass in these as dates. The case sensitivity is important here because we are using the Polars data types, and so they need to be in the correct format. Let's go ahead and change the salary column to a float 64. And these look good now, so let's go ahead and try to apply those and read in our schema into a Polars schema. Okay, so on this next line, we're going to type schema, create a new variable there, and then we'll type plx.read schema and getting some helpers there. Go ahead and autocomplete. Okay, and we want to see what this looks like, so it should look very similar to this. Obviously, there'll be some changes here. Let's go ahead and run that. Okay, so now we have a new Polars schema here that we can use. You can see that we changed the last three columns. Looks like it's being read in correctly there. If you made an error on how you were typing in some of these, maybe you used a lowercase here, that might be an issue. You do have to fix it and make sure that it's compliant with pullers. So just a note there. Let's go ahead now and use this schema. So we're going to read our data back into our interpreter here. And this time we're going to use the schema parameter and pass our new schema variable. Okay, let's go ahead and run this. Okay, and now you can see that the last columns are correctly coded. So we have the last two date columns are in the date format, and then our salary column has that float. So this is an incredible tool for managing data flows that have a consistent schema and enables you to basically save and reuse and even edit the schema file. Now, the other piece I'll point out there is that editing the schema within the Pullers code is possible, right? So you can basically have all the steps of renaming the column, casting the column, whatever else you need to do to get it in that right format. But it's also just so much simpler and so much easier to do it this way, which is why I, created this function. So hopefully you find some value in it. That's all we have for the video. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat below. Otherwise, we'll catch up with you at the next video.